My fellow Americans, as President and Commander-in-Chief, it is my duty to the American people to report that renewed hostile actions against United States ships on the high seas in the Gulf of Tonkin have today required me to order the military forces of the United States to take action in reply. The initial attack on the destroyer Maddox on August 2nd was repeated today by a number of hostile vessels attacking 2 U.S. destroyers with torpedoes. The destroyers and supporting aircraft acted at once on the orders I gave after the initial act of aggression. We believe at least 2 of the attacking boats were sunk. There were no U.S. losses. The performance of commanders and crews in this engagement is in the highest tradition of the United States Navy.
Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun.
Take it on the run, on the run, on the run. Hear them calling you and me, every son of liberty.
Hurry right away, no delay, go today.
Make your daddy glad to have had such a lad. Tell your sweetheart not to pine, to be proud while boys in line. Over there, send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the drums from coming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there, over there.
All right, that was Jeannie Cagney and her brother Jimmy Cagney from Yankee Doodle Dandy. That was a George M. Cohen song that was written in 1917 and was a battle cry to send troops into the European theater in World War I. And that was LBJ at the very top, of course, August 4th, 1964, just like 9 months after Kennedy had been assassinated. And you know, he made his case. He made his case and sent us off to war. And we'll talk about that with our 2 guests in just 1 minute. We have the great, my dear friend, Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, who is a retired U.S. Army veteran, I think 31 years. He is the former chief of staff to Secretary of State Colin Powell. He also was his top advisor when he was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And the recipient, I love this, of the Sam Adams Award in 2009. He is a senior fellow at the Eisenhower Media Network, as is our other guest, my dear friend, I sound like Judge Napolitano, my dear friend Dennis Fritz, who is a retired Air Force Chief Master Sergeant, and he's the author of this best-selling book that you can get on our books, and that, of course, is Deadly Betrayal. And they join us right now. I don't even think I should play this. I want to get right into it. You know what I mean? I usually play some music. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good to be with you.
Well,
thank you.
Yeah. Well, I was going to play this song from 1914. It was an anti-war song, but I didn't want you guys to split because I've already kept you for 4 minutes. You know what I mean? But can I play this before you guys, before I ask you the first question? This is something that came out in 1914, before the, the sentiment for World War I, like jumped up after, after Lusitania or whatever. But here's an anti-war song, 1915. Just play a few, we'll just play a little bit of it.
And millions soldiers to the war have gone, who may never return again. 10 million mothers' hearts must break for the one who died in vain. Heads bowed down in sorrow in her lonely years, I heard a mother murmur through her tears, I didn't raise my boy to be a soldier, I brought him up to be my pride and joy, who dared to place a musket on his shoulder, to shoot some other mother's
All right, you get the picture. You get the picture there. So who really wanted to play that? That's a recording from 1915. Larry, of course, neither one of you remember that tune, right?
Of course we do. We sing it every night before we go to bed.
Oh, boy. And you remember Johnson's speech. Now, when you heard that speech, Colonel, I'm sure you saw it. What did you think back then? Can you recall what kind of impact that had on your thoughts about the Vietnam conflict that was escalating at that point?
No, I just figured we were going to war.
Yeah, you didn't think that was a false flag back then, right?
No. I, at that point in time, I was such a naive little camper. I wouldn't have had a thought like that enter my mind.
Yeah. Are there any false flags happening right now, Chief?
Well, Randy, first of all, thanks for having me back. And let me just say this: when you say about false flags, let me just say this first. Fool us once, shame on them. The Bush administration getting us in the Iraq war on false flags. Fool us again, shame on us. The United States, American people, the world, on getting us in another war with Iran on false flags. Shame on us.
Larry, you've been saying, I've watched you a couple times this week, that this is like walking down the primrose path. You also mentioned Barbara Tuchman, some quote from the First World War. Can you expand on that?
Well, let me just say, first of all, to my good friend Dennis there, that I pitched your book on Charmin Nirwani and the Cradle, Coffee and a Mic, Nema's show, Dialogue Works, Colonel McCain and News Nation, and Doug McGregor's friend, whose name I will not even attempt to pronounce, had a podcast in Yerevan, Armenia. Wow. So I want my honorarium.
And we always promote it here.
Let me just tell y'all something. Let me just tell Larry this, and I appreciate you, Randy. We're doing a service. I wrote that book for a service. Originally, I wrote it because I wanted the men and women of our military to understand how we're used as pawns in these foreign policy adventures, in particular in the Middle East. I wanted them to understand, because they didn't understand policy. And ready for this, Randy? False flags in policy. They didn't understand that. So I admire y'all and I thank y'all, because I want you to promote it, because then it went further than what I thought outside of the military environment. It went into the academia environment and those experts and analysts of military and policy. So I want to thank you all for spreading it, because I did it.
Well, I'm glad to be doing it, man. Brother, can you spare a dime? You know what I mean?
And you talk about false flags, Randy. Yeah. Look at the ones that this administration is putting out all on its own. Everything from letting it be known that cabinet officers are going into military quarters, that's a false flag par excellence, to this rumor spread by the White House that drones were off Los Angeles.
Right.
These are all false flags. All false flags.
Well,
and Red, let me
it's
add
a little
to this.
Confusing, this whole thing. And then there's something that took place in Texas with some guy with a T-shirt on that had an Iranian flag that shot up some bar in Laredo. I expect a lot of false flags. Go ahead, Chief.
Well, I told you when you reach out to me, this was going to be rapid fire, because there's so much to say. When you talk about false flags and you compare it, see, I've seen this playbook. Larry has seen this playbook under the Bush administration. Under the Bush administration and going to Iraq, and as I've stated in the past, all of it is tied in together, Iraq, Syria, and now Iran being saved for last. Well, all this ties into it. You talking about false flags. Think about all the lies we were told and why we had to go into war with Iraq. we're going to see mushroom clouds over the Congress because of the fact they could get WMDs through terrorists here in the United States. Oh, Saddam is such a threat to us. Look, you had the first team back then, which Larry served under. You had the Secretary of Defense, Rumsfeld, who was his second time around as a SecDef. You had Paul Wolfowitz, who was at one time an Assistant Secretary of Defense. Likewise, you had Doug Fite, people like Peter Rodman, John Bolton, who had been around, and they sold us these bill of goods about why we had to attack Iraq. Now you have the second team in, who are bought and paid for with Hegseth, for example. No experience whatsoever. As I stated, no matter how I felt about Rumsfeld, at least he had experience on how the Pentagon operated, and they knew how to tell good lies. As Larry can tell you, Rumsfeld actually ran the PC meeting, if you will, the principals meeting, because of the fact that's where the principals, like Rumsfeld from SecDef, Powell from the Secretary of State, and others, this meeting was run by the National Security Council advisor with the leads of the Department of Defense, Secretary of State, and so on and so on. And I will tell you, they would get together and how they're going to plan this as a first team. They knew how to strategize, whether we liked it or not. This team we got now with these false flags they're telling, we know they're lies. Right. We know they're lies, and they're pulling them out now with Iran was a threat to us. Absolutely not. Bull-faced lie.
Yeah, they're talking about speculation about sending troops over there, ground troops, and there's a Marine carrier that's heading towards an island somewhere off of I forgot the name of the island off of Iran. I mean, this is as nutty or as nutty or not worse, Colonel, as Pickett's charge at Gettysburg or the charge of the Light Brigade in Alma.
You're absolutely correct. As John Mearsheimer said to Chris Hedges a day or so ago, Trump is standing on what we would call the escalation ladder. And the escalation ladder has a number of rungs. The top one, of course, is nuclear war. The bottom rung, you might say, is, and we actually had a 4-star general testify to this to the Congress of the United States 2 days ago. The Supreme Allied Commander in Europe, an Air Force general, said bombing has never persuaded any society or people in the history of bombing to do what you want them to do. What it has done is made them more resolute, more determined to fight you. So that's the Air Force and a 4-star general. I really wonder about his tenure now, but I suspect he was put up to this. And probably put up to it by the congressman who asked him the question. And you can talk about that and what the motivation behind that would have been. But the second rung, Trump's on the first rung right now. Merciless air power day after day, wave after wave. The second rung is ground forces. Now, there's a rung in between that, call it a half rung, if you will, and that's using other people's ground forces, like he tried with the Kurds. But that went to pot really quickly because the Kurds, after being betrayed multiple times by the United States, decided to have none of it. And besides that, they knew the moment they marched into Iran to fight Iranians, Turkey and its armed forces would be behind them to mop them up. So there's no way you're going to do that. So the next rung, or the rung, is ground forces from our own country, which you just referred to in regards to the Marines or whatever. They will be swallowed up the moment they hit the ground. They will not last more than 6 months, if that long, especially the Marines, because where are they going to go in? We surveyed the beaches. We surveyed the ROM, the reception and onward movement point that we used in Kuwait in the first Gulf War, in the second Gulf War. It's still there. It can be refurbished. We use that. We got to walk across Basra and Iraq to get into Iran. We'll be slaughtered, maybe even by the Iraqis opposing us doing that. So tell me where this is going to happen. And if paratroopers go in, goodbye to the 82nd Airborne or whomever it happens to be. So this is, as John Mearsheimer insinuated, if Trump goes up to this rung on the ladder, then he's just sealing our doom.
Yeah. Hey, Randy, let me add to this. Let me keep this thing going in regards to what Larry had just stated. Listen, as I've stated before, I've seen this playbook. One thing I would give Rumsfeld when he first came back to the Pentagon for a second time, he said we had to take all the war plans and redo them again because they were so outdated. Okay? Now, if you look at what's going on right now, the same playbook that we tried in Iraq is being tried now in Iran. And this is how the stupidity is. I'm just going to allude to something that Larry just said a few minutes ago about getting the Kurds involved. Yeah, we had what's called opposition forces during the Iraq war that we were trying to put together. Okay? All right. We lied to them. We told them to uprise, the Kurds in the north and the Shias in the south. And guess what? We left them hanging. We got a lot of them killed. You think the Kurds want to go back and trust us again? That was a lie. The same playbook. We're trying to get so-called opposition forces. That's why that didn't work out. So now that leaves us to possibly put our troops on a suicide mission because there are no opposition forces. At least back during the Bush administration, they tried to put together, led by Peter Rodman, the guy who's now passed away in the Pentagon, to set up the training of the opposition forces. But there are no opposition forces, and we're setting our ground troops if they decide to put them in there on a suicide mission. And let me just mention something about how inexperienced and how silly this group is when you can't strategize and understand what's going on. Everything Iran is doing right now is calculated. Now listen, Larry knows this from being a military guy and being in the State Department. As I stated, at least then, even though they lied to us, you had the first team. How can you not, knowing that you're going to go to war, mind you, that you can't have a NEO, what we call a non-combatant evacuation operation? I'm sure Larry and them, as the chief of staff, would have been planning, how do we get our people out of there secretly, even though you had folks that probably knows, hey, these folks are leaving. How do you leave them stranded like that? Yeah. How do you not know, which we've known for the longest, they've told us that they will close the Strait Hormuz. How did you not know they were going to do that? Secondly, how did you not know when we've been telling them all along that those ballistic missiles were accurate and very powerful, and they told us they were going to knock out our bases in that area, and they've done that.
Right. I'll tell you why, Dennis, and this took some doing, but I finally got a reliable source, actually two, on it. We did it. Rubio did it. He did not activate the NEO system, call in the people, call in the F-77 enlisted people and evacuate them. One, because he was told not to by the Secretary of War, because that would have given imminent warning to Iran that the attack was imminent. And we were involved in negotiations with Iran, you may recall at the time, the second time we've done this. And no one wanted to alert them to the fact that we were going quickly, so we didn't evacuate anyone. And then the second thing he did was he told the country teams in the various countries, don't worry about it, we'll get you out with civilian aircraft. Well, what do you think happens when Iran starts shooting at those countries? They shut down all their civilian aircraft flights. They shut down their airports. So everyone was stranded. And as far as I know, yesterday checking late, we still have people stranded in the region because of Rubio's taking of Hegseth's direction not to implement the NEO system.
Hey, Larry, you are spot on, but it goes back to what I said earlier. Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, what experience does he have in this? Major. The second thing, even though he's been a senator for so long, what in the world does Rubio, what experience he have in this? Acting as the National Security Advisor and the Secretary of State. What kind of sense does that make? I'm sure they're not running no PC meetings or whatever like that. And
it isn't even happening, Dennis. I got the skinny on that too. Here's the way the national security decision-making system works for Donald Trump. There is no National Security Advisor. There is no Deputies Committee. There is no Principals Committee. There is no National Security Council. Donald Trump calls in the respective cabinet officer, like he recently did with Scott Bessent, Secretary of the Treasury, sits him down with only Susie Wiles in the office, and there's a story with that too. Susie was told to leave at one of these meetings, and she said, "Not on your life. I'm staying here." That's how powerful she is, and she's working for Netanyahu. You know that, okay? Back to the story. He then tells Scott Bessent what he wants him to do. Maybe he listens to Scott Bessent in response. Then Scott goes out and executes. He does that with every cabinet member with whom he wants to do something. There is no coordination across the interagency group. There is no National Security Council. There is no statutory decision-making process. There is no National Security Advisor. There's nothing but Donald Trump and his fertile brain.
Right. And
Randy?
Hegseth, I want to just throw one thing in before I forget, because I heard you talking about this, Larry, and this is something that I'm familiar with, being a recovering alcoholic at times, over the last 40 years. So I've been in and out of meetings. You posited that Hegseth, he says he's a recovering alcoholic or drug addict, as is Lindsey Graham. I watch these guys. I know the signs of someone that is not following the program, and they've had slips, especially Graham. He looks like he's drunk every time he's on.
I think you're right about a quarter or to half of the time.
Yeah. So, and then Hegseth.
And I got to tell you, Randy, Graham is seriously worried about Epstein. Everyone who knows Lindsey Graham knows he has a very, very shady sexual career. Right. Let's just put it that way.
Well, someone told me that, and a guy by the last name of Stone told me that years ago, that they had, if he has any, the Lindsey Graham by the cojones, all right, the deep state. So you think is that what's driving him to drink, or just to make
I think
these
it's I think it's
statements?
both. I think it's driving him to drink, and it's driving him to say some of the more egregious things he says because he's so scared that they'll let it out.
Right. Yeah.
And let me just add to that, and I got to jump on the James Carville ship and train when he talked about, and please forgive me for all the audience and all our Christian beliefs and so forth, how James Carville, a former advisor to President Clinton, Bill Clinton, when he went off on a tangent saying how much he hates Donald Trump. Well, please forgive me, but I'm almost to that point how much I hate Lindsey Graham. He's been telling us early on he don't care about us. He don't even care about his constituency in South Carolina. He told them when they were being flooded that, hey, I'm not worried about y'all. What about Israel right now? And now he's really told them, I'm going back to South Carolina, if it's my last living days, to tell them to send their kids off and support Israel. Right. Oh, what about us over here? I'm about to the point where I almost hate him, and I apologize for saying that. But this is a low-down, dirty traitor.
Yeah,
he's already told us.
I miss Strom Thurmond at this point. All right.
Yeah, you got that right, Randy. I miss Fritz Hollins. I miss all those old Mendel Rivers, all those old crooks from South Carolina. I'd take them to Lindsey Graham in a heartbeat.
I'll even take Preston Brooks. All right.
Yeah, well, all that old group, Carl Vinson, Sam Nunn, all that old group at least had at the root of their being America's interest at heart.
Right.
They might have been cheats and scoundrels and everything else and racists and so forth. Strom was probably married to a black woman, I think.
Yeah.
And
Robert Byrd. What about Byrd? Now, Byrd, I know he was in the Klan at one point, and everyone says, but
Byrd's got a storied history too. But then again, Byrd was the only one who made the speech on the floor of the Senate.
It was.
I remember him making it. Listen, he said, listen, we're debating the most serious decision a nation can make. And listen, there's no one here. Why, you could hear a pin drop. We're getting ready to embark on a war that'll cost lives and a fortune, maybe even billions of dollars. He was the only one right on that. And no one listened to him.
I saw that speech.
That was the Iraq War.
That was an incredible speech that he delivered there, that silver hair walking back and forth, quoting the Bible. He did the same thing with Clarence Thomas back in, I think, 1989 when Thomas was confirmed, or was it 1990? So Byrd, he has a checkered past, but he did have a checkered past. But he was
built a great highway into West Virginia so the coal trucks could get out more easily. But I like it because I can go fishing on it.
All right, now listen, I got to ask you this, and this really was got to be my first question, not question, but just bringing up the topic of these 171 or whatever, 165 girls that were killed with this Tomahawk missile. Was that from a ship, and was that planned? Did they know? Somebody says it was actually, they said, get it, it will, because they're related to these people with the Republican Guard.
No, there's a real story to that, and it's a sad story. It's the same story, incidentally, of our bombing of Serbia and hitting Belgrade and hitting the Chinese embassy, at least, and killing a couple of diplomats, a real incident with China at the time. But what happened with that and what happened with this is that we reached into the deck of targeting data, and this is unconscionable, but it happens. We reached in there and got an old package. And the old package showed that that was a part of the Republican Guard structure. It didn't show that years later, after that photograph was taken, that they actually thought about that school being that close to the Republican Guard headquarters. So they moved it slightly and painted it differently and made sure that the contrast was dramatic between that school and the IRGC headquarters. But we put the old targeting data in the computer. And so we hit it thinking it was IRGC headquarters. An unconscionable error.
Let me add to that, Randy. It goes back to what I said earlier about operating under old plans. As I stated earlier, I give it to Rumsfeld. He came in when he went into the Secretary and said we need to update our plans. Well, likewise, they had some old targeting plans, which caused that. And because of the fact we're working with inexperienced people right now. And to go back to your original question, too, yes, Tomahawk missiles are fired from ships, not aircraft. Okay, they're fired from ships. And your buddy Trump tells a lie when he said, oh, the Iranians did it. It was a Tomahawk missile. Then he said, well, everybody have those. We sell them. I think there's only 2 other countries besides ourselves that have Tomahawk missiles. Even Israel don't have Tomahawk missiles. It's only us and 2 other countries.
Yeah, it was obvious, but there's basically carpet bombing going on, and they're hitting a lot of civilian targets. And I'm not sure these pilots or the people on the ship that launch these missiles, if they're aware of the civilian casualties that they're inflicting, and what that does to them when they find out, like 165 girls got killed, or
Hey, Larry, can I speak to that?
Sure.
And I'm going to make it hit home with Larry a little bit. As Larry knows, and it's for your audience to know, after I got fed up for working in OSD policy, Office of Secretary of Defense policy, where a guy named Doug Feith, before he got fired, was ran out of there, I was contacted by an old general officer friend of mine who at the time when I decided to step away from the military and then went back into the Pentagon, didn't know what the reason of this war was in Iraq at the time. I got contacted to go over after this big Washington Post story about how we were treating our war wounded as they returned back from Afghanistan and Iraq during the time. We had them living in molded rooms because we didn't have enough accommodations for the wounded coming back. And we had them living in molded rooms outside of Walter Reed. So I got contacted by the Air Force leadership and said, hey, Fritz, we need you to go over to Walter Reed and be an advocate and take care of our Air Force members to make sure we're taking care of them. And now, why do I say that? I had officers who had not set foot on the battlefield, but they were operating outside of, and Randy, you're familiar with this, living in Las Vegas at one time.
Yeah, Nellis Air Force Base. I worked there.
Yeah, outside of Nellis Air Force Base, but we had what you call UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, where almost like today, drones, if you will, but it was not drones. And they could actually see when they made an errant hit on a schoolhouse or something in Iraq or Afghanistan at the time, they could see it immediately. And I must tell you, a number of my clients were Air Force officers who couldn't stand the fact that they had killed innocent women and children. That is predominantly of the case when you hear about PTSD. They had PTSD. Mind you, one of my, I hate to call him most celebrated, but he was what we want to characterize in war, and I hate this, a hero. He was on the ground when he called in errant strikes. He held babies in his arms crying. He never recovered from that. So that's what it do to them. It destroys them for the rest of life. In this one case, what I'm telling you, when he came back from Iraq, his dad called him a baby killer.
Oh.
He never recovered from, oh man, it brings tears to my eyes now. He never recovered from this. And that's why I got on this bandwagon of trying to prevent these useless lying wars, because what it do to the men and women of our services and their families is they're used as pawns in these lying interventionist wars. Now, if I sound overly mad today, I am, because I want to get it out, because I got it to say to stop the Iran war.
Get it out,
and
brother.
I failed.
Get it out, man. Go ahead, Larry. You want to?
No, I can't top that, but I can tell you that my son is a Reaper pilot, and my son has been in charge of Reaper pilots on active duty and on reserve duty because he's in the Tennessee Air National Guard now. But he's worked up enough time on both watches, if you will, because you have to be on active duty to kill, that he's got 2 retirements, one from the Tennessee Air National Guard and one for 20 years from the U.S. Air Force. And he is in rough waters from time to time and he was just supervising the consoles. But at many times he would stop and give the order to 1 or 2 different people on the console, shall I shoot? Yes, shoot, or no, you shouldn't shoot. Now, I like to think that my son was as circumspect as anyone, and I would love to have him there rather than perhaps someone else. But still, it weighs incredibly heavy on him that he had to do that. And he once called me, he wouldn't talk about it much, but he once called me and he told me I had a good day. What's a good day? He said, I really did right. We had a special forces team in Afghanistan, completely surrounded by Taliban, about to be wiped out. There were only 5 of them. There must have been 100 Taliban. I'm overhead, and I've got 2 Hellfires on board. And they had just waved away the F-16 because the F-16, they didn't trust to get them close enough. But when they found out that I was there, they called me and said, please fire your Hellfires, both of them if you can, on top of us. And he said, I'm not allowed to do that. I have a friendly fire area that I cannot fire inside of. They said, believe me, we won't be here when they hit the ground. Fire them where we are right now. And he violated the procedure and he fired them. And he got those guys out of there alive. And he said to me, that was close air support of our soldiers on the ground. And I felt very good.
Wow. What's happening now with these soldiers? I don't know what the casualty rate is. It's, first casualty of war is the truth.
You want to know about the tankers over Iraq?
Yeah,
it was shot down by a missile. It wasn't any accident. We're lying through our teeth. It was shot down by a missile. The other pilot saw the missile come up. The other pilot evaded. He was shot out at it too, but he actually got away. It was fire from the ground. It was a missile. 2 missiles, as a matter of fact. So we're lying about that, and 6 people were killed.
Wow. That was today.
That was yesterday.
Today, I hear that a plane went down with a crew of 6. Did you hear about that?
Well, that was if you're talking
that's
about
what he's talking about, Randy.
Oh, okay. That was yesterday.
Yeah.
All right. So 6 died there, and previously it was 7. So that's 13 and 160 injured. Is that a low count or is that an accurate count?
Well, you got to realize that there's no ground war going on right now, but there are some missiles coming in, and they're well aimed. We were completely put out of business in Bahrain. They destroyed the 5th Fleet capability to have any eyes at all. Destroyed it. And guess what, Randy? The Bahrainis were out in the street cheering as those missiles hit. Cheering. So, these people don't necessarily like their governments, and they don't like their governments having given territory for us to be on. So, and Al Udeid, the big airfield over there, is shut down right now because of the damage they did to the runways. Wow. So they're pinpointing their strikes. They're making sure they count, and we're lying about most of it. And on top of all of that, Dennis can verify this if he wants to. I can verify it without using Dennis, though, now. Landstuhl, our hospital, our onward movement hospital, but treatment too, if there's space and room, in Germany, which has seen this sort of thing a number of times, you might imagine, with Afghanistan and 2 times in Iraq. Landstuhl has now shut down all of its services for civilians. It treats civilians, pregnant women and everything else, as well as GIs. So it shut down all of its services in order to be ready for what they know is going to be an influx of casualties coming in through them. And we already have, and I have this on very good authority, we already have over 100 casualties. I can't get the WIA, KIA breakdown, but we have over 100 already. I suspect most are WIA, and some of them may be not big injuries, but that's a lot. for a war that's not even involving ground forces yet.
Right. Do you want to add to that, Chief?
Well, here's what I will say. I alluded to my background earlier when I left Office of Secretary of Defense Policy. I went over to Walter Reed, the old Walter Reed in Washington, D.C. I became a program manager for the entire Wounded Warrior program for the Pentagon. So people saw me as a mentor. They knew how I felt about our war wounded and taking care of them. And they see me as a mentor. I started getting, how can I say this? And like Larry said, I don't want to indulge certain things, but I started checking on some folks that are still there. And they said, we can't talk because we're suppressed, but we're stressed. And they couldn't tell me numbers, but they said, don't make me lie to you, but we're stressed. And I knew what that meant. And I asked, is it higher casualties, what's being reported? Yes. And Larry Johnson had been talking about it. So I sent Larry Wilkerson an email, Larry Johnson, Doug McGregor, and saying, guys, they're suppressing the numbers. There are more war wounded. More folks started talking. That's why they had to release the number of injuries at the time, 140. They would have never released that if it wasn't for people putting pressure on to let the American people know. Let me just tell you something. When it comes to war, go all the way back to the Vietnam. I hate to say this to your audience and those around, they need to spread this. Your government will lie to you. Now, they do it under disguise, which I can understand. You don't want the so-called, quote, quote, enemy to know what damage is being done, how many casualties, like Larry saying they're lying about, oh, it wasn't under fire of friendly fire or enemy fire. It was an accident. They don't want the so-called enemy to know. But at the same time, they don't want the American people to know. That's why I'll tell you this, too. We don't know the numbers, as Larry was saying, which I understand. But I will tell you this. I think it was a test. As I tell folks, I give you opinions, assumptions, and facts. I've given you a lot of facts, but I'm going to give you an assumption. I even think the casualties are higher because I think they're just slowly just sneaking out 4 here, 2 there. And Hegseth said it himself when they sneaked out the first 4. He said, when the media picked up on that, all y'all want to do is make President Trump look bad. You're concentrating on the deaths. So imagine if all of a sudden you start hearing about 30 and 40 people being dead. What will that do? That would just, oh man, the American people, even those that are trying to support this war, would go crazy.
Right.
And so you must remember, your government, when it comes to this, will lie to you.
You're correct there. And so we don't see what's going on, the war you don't see. And Israel, the people of Israel, and us out here, we have no idea what's happening to Israel other than the fact that you don't see Netanyahu out that often, kind of like hiding. And what have you heard and seen so far, Colonel, about the damage being inflicted on Israel?
The information I'm getting is quite dire. What I'm hearing is now, and these are just some dimensions to the problem, now when a barrage of Hezbollah missiles come in, 200 the other day, timed with a barrage also of very much more deadly missiles, about 50 altogether from Iran, then you look at the video that we're seeing, and we're getting some feeds that are pretty good now, most of them coming from Landsat or something like that. What you see is nothing going up and everything coming down. In other words, no interceptors are firing from Israel. The Iron Dome is completely defeated. They don't have any Patriot missiles left, Pac 1 or 2. They don't have any THAAD left at all. So they're letting the majority of the missiles, they don't have any choice, come through and hit. As a consequence of that, the port of Haifa was struck in a majorly decisive way. That's their oil facilities for onward movement and reception. Eilat, the port at the end of the Gulf of Aqaba that's on the Red Sea, was already shut down by the Israelis, voluntarily shut down because Haifa or Eilat had become non-productive because the Houthis stopped all the ships from coming up and calling on that port. So they just kind of shut it down, put it in mothballs. So now they really have no significant port capability. Ben-Gvir has issued weapons to individual Israeli Jews. He would issue no weapons to Arabs. That tells you something. They are expecting things to get really bad on the streets of Tel Aviv in particular, but probably elsewhere too, like Nazareth in the north, fairly populous area, and lots of non-Jews. So things aren't looking very good at all for Israel, which occasioned me to say on a podcast early this morning, I'm really worried now, very worried about what Netanyahu said in Hebrew 2 nights ago at a meeting of his closest advisors. When he finished that meeting in Hebrew, and when he speaks in Hebrew, you need to listen because he's not speaking to you, he's speaking to his own people. And in this case, those closest to him, he said, if it gets down to it, they're going to get what they've never gotten before and what they will not believe.
Yeah.
That means one thing to me. That means one thing. That means a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
Randy, quickly, let me add to that.
Yes.
I started getting word that Israel was getting hit hard, extremely hard. And you ever notice they're not showing it? The only time Israel will show anything if it hit a house or in the past, hospitals, for us to feel sorry for them. And then when I realized they were lying, CNN came on record and said they were being censored and they couldn't show certain hits.
Right.
That's absolutely the case. It's the tightest censorship in 81 years of my life, 50 of them. Yeah, it's the tightest I've ever seen in my life. If you do anything, one guy came out of a bomb shelter, was running back to his shop. He was apprehended and told to get back in the bomb shelter or they'd shoot him. And the real reason was not they feared for his life. They feared for what he was going to see.
Yeah. Wow. How close are we to midnight there? How close is that second hand to midnight there, Colonel?
It's touching it.
It's right on the cusp.
It's touching the numeral.
And
I mean, you don't need the Board of Atomic Scientists or whatever. You don't need them to move their clock. It's already there. We're just waiting for this to happen. And even if it doesn't happen, Randy, there are at least 4, maybe 5 states in the world that within 5 years of this ending will have nuclear weapons because they understand what Kim Jong-un tried to tell the Iranian leadership. You need a nuclear weapon. We'll help you because otherwise they will attack you eventually.
Let me add to that too. And once again, Larry and Randy, I thank you all for mentioning deadly betrayal. But for those who haven't, if you go to page 46, and those who possibly will get it, I talk about Iran's their ballistic missiles. Under the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, that's the old, what we call the Iran nuclear deal, which President Obama had executed. And Larry was a part of advising, the administration at that time on that. It was a Iran nuclear deal that was working. But those that were against it, in particular the neocons, they wanted them to get rid of those ballistic missiles. Why? Because we're seeing now why they wanted them to get rid of them. Now, here's what I will say to you. In the book on page 46, I said they're not going to never get rid of those ballistic missiles because that's their lifeline. And oh, by the way, I think it will be prudent for them to get a nuclear weapon, as Larry just alluded to. Why? You look at North Korea. We're not going to bother them. And so it will be prudent for them to get a nuclear weapon.
Right. Yes, and maybe...
Yeah, Dennis is right. We're forcing them to make a decision that even our own intelligence community since 2009 has agreed on unanimously they hadn't made. We're forcing them to make it.
Why? Where's the hidden hand here? Is it Netanyahu? Is he the one that instructed Trump to do this?
That'd be a good place to start.
I mean, is the Epstein files? I mean, what is it that prompted him during the negotiations to, kick off this what looks like a real fool's errand? And the repercussions are enormous economically and
all of the above. Epstein, getting the American people's attention off Epstein, and that goes for Graham, who's pushing him hard on that. There are other people who are pushing him hard on that too because they're deeply in those files. They don't want to see it come out. So they're all putting pressure on Trump. And some of these people you would know the names of. You would know the names of instantly. And it's Netanyahu and Miriam Adelson and her billions and the grip that they have on Donald Trump. And it's his, desire for peace, if you can understand what I mean.
Right. So if they do get some kind of deal, and I don't see any deal, they're not. He said no negotiations, no ceasefire, and the new supreme leader, the son Khamenei, and I suppose it's going to go on. And Larry, I just want to bring up this word because you hear it a lot. This goes back to Jerusalem with Arabs, with Muslims and Christians and Jews alike. The word you hear a lot now is eschatology. So can you tell us how that figures in people's determination in this conflict?
Well, the way it figures in for me is the way I just wrote in an op-ed that the Military Religious Freedom Foundation published. It's a little bit bigger than an op-ed. And they put a neat picture in front of it, too. They showed Donald Trump on a white Charger with his lance out, and Pete Hegseth on a white Charger with his tattoos all over him and his lance out, and Jesus on the left-hand horse with his bomb out or whatever it was. I can't remember. But anyway, it is the marriage of this, if you want to call it eschatology, it's the marriage of this great awakening that we're having in the country right now. Probably some historians would say it's the third, some would say the fourth, some might say it's the fifth. You may remember in 1919, the last one that we had produced prohibition. And we passed an amendment to the Constitution, the 18th Amendment to the Constitution. And we created prohibition. We banned all sale of alcoholic beverages across the country. A few years later, 1933 to be exact, we passed the 21st Amendment to repeal that. But not before, during that interim period, we created the beginnings of organized crime. We're paying that debt right now with everything from organ transfers to trafficking in people to automobile theft to all manner of crime, $6 to $7 trillion annually in the black economy, because that's what started it. The organized crime arranged around fighting prohibition and getting booze to Americans started organized crime. Not saying it wouldn't have started anyway, but that gave it a kick in the rear end, with Al Capone sort of being the beginning agent of the whole thing. We've got that going on again. And this great awakening is producing people like John Hagee, who pronounced epic fury God's will. God's target is Iran. God's purpose is to bring about Armageddon. And everybody fighting in the military right now is doing God and ultimately Jesus's will. And then you got people like Franklin Graham, who goes in the center courtyard of the Pentagon and gives a sermon with Petey Hegseth and all his clan in the circle, and talks about what Ted Cruz talked with Tucker Carlson about, and that is that this God is a vengeful God, and you're following this vengeful God. So don't be worried about killing men, women, children, rats, lice, dogs, cats, and everything else, because this God wants you to do that. This is now married up with ultra-Zionism, which wants to, among other things, build a Jewish temple on the same spot that is the second or third, depending on whom you talk with, most sacred spot in the Muslim world, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. They want to pound that into the ground and build the Jewish temple on top of that. Then you got people like John Hagee. John Hagee, who sent $300 million to the West Bank settlers to help them with their mission there to kill Palestinians and Arabs in general and take over the territory. You can't make this stuff up. You've got this unholy alliance between Jews who don't believe a whit about Armageddon. It's not their philosophy. Most of them aren't religious anyway. And Christians who are using the Jews to get to Jesus and the end times when all the Jews, unbelievers, will be killed. This is crazy. This is insane.
Yeah.
Hey, Randy, let me add to that now.
Go ahead.
When you asked the question about Epstein files, well, let me just say this. You take this to the bank. Regardless of the Epstein files, this was going to happen anyway. It just so happened they found a tool through the Epstein files to make it happen. This goes all the way back, as Larry was giving you a quick history, this goes all the way back to what's happening now to the 1990s. A guy by the name of Paul Wolfowitz, who I mentioned during the Iraq War, was the deputy SecDef. He was an assistant SecDef then, and Larry will remember this, and what this is called the Defense Planning Guidance, where he talked about what's going on right now. But Powell, as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and at the time, Cheney, they said, get out of here. And they threw that away, okay? Because after the first Iraq War, when we went in and took Saddam out of Kuwait, there were people in the Pentagon, Wolfowitz, that wanted them to go further. But we had a mission and objective at that time, to go in, get them out of Kuwait, and come back home. Well, guess what? Wolfowitz never forgot that. So let me just tell you this. This goes all the way back to the 1990s of this plan of them taking over the Middle East. Under the George W. Bush administration, they found their president. You got a guy that's come out of state that had no experience really in foreign policy. And so the neocons, led by Cheney as part of Bush's transition team, he hired the majority of the cabinet from the, what was that at the time? The American Enterprise Institute, the AEI, their headquarters at the time of the neocons. And they surrounded Bush, and away we went. Okay? So this would have happened. In my writings, I've talked about, be careful of the administration that we pick, and look who that person surrounds themselves with. Now, they got doggone Trump in there right now, that is bought and paid for in this second administration. Adelson, who gave him all this money. Okay, he has to do this now. And so now also, I think the tool, when I mentioned the Epstein files, I never knew this before the Epstein files started being exposed. Trump is in there more than anybody. I'm thinking him and Epstein were co-workers in this.
Right.
Yeah. I wouldn't doubt it. And I'll tell you who else is in there big time is Ehud Barak, former prime minister of Israel, who, along with Bill Clinton, fouled up the Oslo process big time. Bill Clinton was in office because the Jews, the Israelis, and when I say that, I mean Israeli Jews.
Right.
They put their weight behind Bill Clinton and a number of other things like Ross Perot in Texas, who got 5% of the vote, to get H.W. Bush unelected because he had forced them into the Oslo process, and they hated him for it. And so they got him unelected, and from that moment on, what Dennis said just started happening, and it happened rather naturally because all the presidents were so convinced that if they went against AIPAC and they went against the Jewish lobby, ultimately against Israel, they were toast.
Right.
Let me just add to that what Larry just said. Think about this for a moment. If your audience doesn't know this, our job is to feed you the information and then you do your own critical thinking. It was Bill Clinton under his administration where the Iraq regime policy came about. Under Bill Clinton, also the Iraqi Liberation Act, a law that we were going to fund that. Originally, it was $97 million, which back in that day, decades ago, was a lot of money. Under Bill Clinton, the Saddam regime change policy was under him.
Right. Is there any way out of this, Colonel? I mean, any way whatsoever to have a resolution of this affair? I don't think Israel is going to stop. It's like Michael Corleone in The Godfather talking about Sollozzo. You know what I mean? Sollozzo.
Well, Randy, at root here is what I've told you about before. At root is the shifting geopolitical, geostrategic picture. At root is the surrendering of American hegemony to the new power in the world,
China,
aided and abetted by others like Russia and India and all of Asia, really. You're talking about us trying, and this is part of this, the billionaires that are behind Trump, the Rothschilds, the J.P. Morgans, their replacements now, the BlackRocks and Vanguards and so forth. They're behind this because they fear China mightily. And they know that Iran is the southern anchor, if you will, of Iran's base road initiative. They know that if China keeps going, that their triumph over us in an economic and financial sense will be majorly aided. And they know Russia's in there helping. So they think they're taking on, and they're right in a sense, a very, very dangerous force in a Russia-China alliance that now kind of centers on Iran. The problem with that is their interpretation of this change. Let me go back to H.W. Bush. His interpretation of it, and I will tell you this too, under Powell's guidance, George W. Bush's interpretation of it, the first term, was the same. Otherwise, we never would have had a decent policy with China like we did. Their interpretation was we must accommodate this change. We must all become peer powers, and then sort of in a condominium of peer powers consisting roughly of Japan, the United States, maybe the EU, but I don't think they'd say that today. It's broken apart, but certainly something in Europe, and then Moscow and Beijing, and maybe Delhi would come together and more or less manage what came after Bretton Woods, what came after the global system, the order that was the law, the rules-based order, that sort of thing, and manage it. And manage it primarily through cooperation and collaboration in order to beat the two most ominous challenges. Number one, nuclear weapons with no treaties. And number two, the climate crisis, with number two being the one that's going to kill us all, whether nuclear weapons do or not. And so that was the approach that these people took to this. And it was a fairly solid approach. Now we have the exact opposite approach. Stop China, stop Russia, stop India, stop them all, stop BRICS at any cost, even suicide. That's our current policy.
Okay, you would think, that we would be friends, maybe join BRICS or something, or, add on to it and have a cooperative world at this point.
Oh, Larry, Randy, that's not going to happen.
Let me finish. You would think that's the practical thing to do. But they're building. China is building. They're not bombing. We're bombing. We're like a pirate ship. You know what I mean? We're moving around like a pirate ship and grabbing. What is this, a Hobbesian world that we live in, Larry?
Yes, and China saw it anyway. They may be changing their mind right now. China sees it as a world of healthy, productive. We taught them this, Randy. Capitalist competition. We taught them. We raised them up, if you will. And they become as good as us, and maybe in some categories better. And now they want to exercise that in a condominium of powers that more or less manages the world, because they don't want climate change to kill them either, and they don't want nukes to kill them either. And we have utterly refused to join that. Utterly refused.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chief.
You were going to add on. I know we're running out of time.
No, listen, we're not running out of time. I'm keeping you guys over. No, I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, you were right. That would be the practical thing to do. But that would take away our power. How do you think we sanction these other countries in the American dollar? Why? That's why they're turning to BRICS. Now, let me just mention something else that you said as well. Something Larry just said. They went from partners when we brought China into the free world, and now they're adversaries because they did so well in it. And that's why we want to destroy them, is because of the fact now they're competitors, they're adversaries. And so we don't like that. But let me just go back to something else Larry just said too. When you talk about the neocons, see, the neocons' philosophy is to truly, I'm just going to use plain language, to take over the world, to weaken Russia. That is why we're in the Ukraine and Russia. We really cause that. That's a fact, because we want to weaken Russia. In regards to China, when Larry was talking about this, most of their oil, guess what, comes through that strait. And so in some ways, we're happy. But China's working around that. Iranian oil is getting through the strait. And so this is all about America's imperialism.
All
okay?
Right. Stop right there. I don't want you guys to go. We're going to hang over for a few minutes afterwards. I just got to take a station break. And this is music from a film that got one Academy Award nomination for sound, and this is the Gold Diggers of 33, which is about the Depression and mistreatment of veterans of World War I. And this is My Forgotten Man by Joan Blondell. We'll be back in just a minute. All right, don't go anywhere, guys.
Remember my forgotten man? You put a rifle in his hand. You sent him far away. You shouted, hip hooray! But look at him today. Remember my forgotten man. You had him cultivate the land. He walked behind a plow. The sweat fell from his brow. But look at him right now. And once he used to love me. I was happy then. He used to take care of me. Won't you bring him back again? 'Cause ever since the world began, a woman's got to have a man. Forgetting him, you see, means you're forgetting me. Like my forgotten man.
All right. We'll play the rest of that later. Random Critical live on the fly here in New York City at WBAI, WBAI.com, Free Speech Radio. We're actually in Brooklyn. And I don't know, Larry Wilkerson, did you say you got hit by a lightning strike? Yeah. I think, Larry, are you there, Dennis?
Yeah, what happened?
I just got an email that his power went off. He just kind of disappeared. He sent me an email saying we just got hit by a lightning strike and all the power's off in my house. So,
wow. Well, let me do this, Randy.
I want you to stay. I think has Garland. All right, Garland's entering. So just stick around and finish that thought. You don't have to go right now because your friend.
No.
First time you were on this show, it was with Garland. Do you remember?
Yeah, that was the first time I've been introduced to Garland.
Did Garland? Did you sign on?
Yes.
All right, Garland Nixon just finished, who is with our sister station in Pacifica Station in D.C. He's the host of, it's called View News.
News Views.
And he's got the Garland Nixon Show, which I watch religiously now, Garland. I got to tell you something. How do you do it? You're doing like 4 or 5 shows a day. Seriously. You just did a show with this guy from Dubai.
Yes, Mario Nawful.
So I look forward to watching that.
Yes. Oh, it was a blast. It was great.
All right. So you got Colonel, not Colonel God, the Colonel Wilkerson sent me a text message that the power went out in his house.
It was the greatest source.
And we got Dennis Fritz. You two know each other. And
Yes.
so, Dennis, you're not finishing up. You want to stick around for a little bit?
Yeah, but let me do this. If I was been given closing remarks, and now I'm going to stay on as long as you like for me, because this is so important, okay? Here's what I want your audience to leave with from me. And like I said, I will stay on. As I open up and I said, shame on them, the George W. Bush administration, when they lied us into the Iraq war on a WMD lie. Shame on them, because we were gullible. We believed it. They said that he had WMD, Saddam I'm talking about, and there would be mushroom clouds over Washington, D.C. Okay, fool us once, shame on them. Fool us twice, shame on us if we didn't learn from the first time of a so-called lie based on Iran having nuclear weapons. Oh, by the way, we broke the deal, as I mentioned earlier, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, better known as Iran nuclear deal. We broke that, which they were abiding by. So what I want to do here real quickly, and I'm so sick and tired when we say, oh, they're the biggest sponsor of terrorism in the world. Oh, they killed thousands of Americans. Well, what I want to do, and I know I've been going off here because I just want to get it off my mind because, as I told you, I got into this crusade to keep us out of this war, which I predicted years ago that this was going to happen because I saw the plan of doing that. You take out Iraq, Saddam, based on a WMD lie. You take out Assad in Syria, where we used Al-Qaeda, who was supposed to be the enemy, to get rid of Assad. And now we're going to take out Iran. But listen to this, and then I'll close and be quiet and listen to Garland and answer any questions y'all may have. One, for your audience, a reminder. Why do Iran distrust us or dislike us? Well, we overthrew their Democratic elected government for their oil with the Brits. We overthrew them.
Right.
We supported Iraq during the Iran-Iraq war. Oh, by the way, Iraq used chemical weapons, killing thousands of Iranians. We assassinated Soleimani. We, again, withdrew from the JCPOA. We, twice now, last year and this year, we, in the middle of negotiations and diplomacy, we attacked them. And oh, by the way, we killed their Pope equivalent for you Catholics out there. We killed their leader, religious leader.
Right.
They have the right, I'll leave it for your audience and everybody else, do they have a right to defend themselves when we are trying to steal their land and their resources? We are over there. They're not over here. Right. Do they have a right to defend themselves using our men and women in uniform as pawns in these foreign wars?
Right. Well said.
Randy,
Larry's back.
Yeah,
we got Garland Nixon here too as well.
Let me tell you something. I thought an atomic bomb had gone off. We just had a major lightning strike on a major transformer just outside my house. It took everything out.
Are you serious?
No.
The whole street?
Everything.
Do you have? Are
all
you
the
using
power,
a candle
everything.
or what? Do you use? How are you able to function on this? You must have some kind of.
Dominion's pretty good about this sort of thing. It's happened before, and what they probably did was they shunted off to another transformer. We've had it happen. So 15 years we've had it happen almost once every 2 or 3 years. So they built some auxiliaries and they shunt off real quickly. So it took about 5 minutes and they got back up.
All right. Well, stick around. We got Garland Nixon. Garland, give us. We've been talking for the last hour. I'm sure something new has happened because you're always on top of things. Give us an assessment from your point of view of how this war is going.
Well, right now, I think it's pretty straightforward. And, I think the U.S. should have understood when they struggled with the Houthis that technology has changed. And that it's not easy to dominate powers, weaker powers anymore. I think they made a tragic error in believing that, it was hubris at its highest level and believing that they could just bully Iran around. There are just so many errors made here. Apparently, they never read, no one there ever read either von Clausewitz on war or Sun Tzu or anything like that. Always leave your enemy a golden bridge to escape by things of that nature. What they did was they said to Iran, basically, we're going to kill you. And, if you and I are in a bar and we'll step outside and fight, that's a bar fight. That's a certain kind of fight. And people are going to fight, and then they're going to go on home and have a beer or whatever. But if you say, I'm going to kill you, and this fight ain't over until you're dead, that's a different kind of fight. That's what they said to Iran. And the Iranians look around at Libya, and they look around at Syria, and they say, oh my God, we're not going to end up like that. So you have put Iran in a position where they have to fight for their life, and they will never stop, and they will never give up, and they will not stop fighting. The last man in Iran will pick up a penknife and run at you if he can, because his only other option is cultural death. And after 2,000 years, they will not accept cultural death, number one. Number two, the United States has a finite amount of war material. So the U.S. is now like, yes, we'll fight you, as long as it don't last but a couple more weeks, because we'll be all out of everything after a couple more weeks. And they know it. So the United States is now, it's pretty well established that numerous people from the U.S. has attempted to contact the Iranians and say, how about a ceasefire? A ceasefire? And you told me you were going to kill me? If I'm the Iranians, here's what I'm thinking. Let's see, in a couple more weeks, you'll be out of everything. If you're out of everything in 3 weeks, I'll talk to you in 5. Yeah. Right? We've put ourselves in a position where the Iranians have to utilize whatever strength they have. Well, one is geography. One of them is topography. They've got mountain ranges. We can't very well put soldiers in and go traipsing across the mountain ranges. We can't approach them by sea or we'll be blown to smithereens. The other thing is we can't be involved in a long war. So we're in a situation, I think, a no-win situation. And rhetorically speaking, I think that because, let's see, planes are mysteriously falling out of the sky for no reason. We've got ships that are having mysterious fires in the laundry room. Never a missile hit us, never a drone. Somebody slipped on a banana peel. There was a fire in the laundry room. At this point, our troops are so unlucky, we should issue them rabbit's feet and horseshoes. Because nobody ever gets shot. We just have some unfortunate, unlucky incident where somebody's burning something in the laundry room. We can't even admit as a military that we're taking injuries or that we got hit by a missile because there is so little support at home that if Pete Hegseth comes out and says, yeah, well, actually, we got 500 injuries. Our ships are getting hit with missiles and they just shot down 2 more planes. They're afraid. They don't even know what the reaction will be, so they have to lie. They're in a world, the people that are running our country are in a world of trouble. And when you said somebody was struck by lightning, I just knew you were going to say Pete Hegseth based on his latest interview, press conference.
Petey's getting ready. I agree with everything you said, Garland. And Petey is getting ready. I just got the notice to have another prayer meeting in the Pentagon, to which it is not obligatory for you to come, but you are encouraged to attend. And the prayer meeting is going to bless everybody for this war.
Colonel, I wanted to ask you about the Strait of Hormuz and all this projections about sending, U.S. naval, assets there to escort these ships. Is that like a pipe dream, or do you think it's a possibility that they would even try it?
Well, we tried it before. We tried it 20 years ago in Operation Praying Mantis and Operation Earnest Will. We reflagged Kuwaiti tankers, and the very first thing that happened was Bridgerton hit a mine, and the skipper was ready to kill us because he was dead in the water in the strait, in the critical part of the strait. And signals went out to everybody. And then Saddam Hussein hit one of our ships with 2 Exocet missiles, not satisfied with one, and almost sunk her. She had to limp back to Norfolk. And then we had another destroyer hit a mine, and she had to limp back to Norfolk. But then Vincennes, in the Gulf at the time, Aegis cruiser, one of the very first ones, fired a missile up in the air and hit an Iranian Airbus and killed 290 innocent Iranian civilians. Well, Khomeini, then the Ayatollah, was already fighting Saddam and had fought him for 8 long, bloody years, think World War I in the Levant. And he said, I'm tossing in the towel. I can fight Iraq, but I can't fight Iraq backed by the United States. So we had a little precursor of this. Well, all to say the Iranians, as Garland just pointed out, the Iranians learned and went to work for 20 plus years to make sure they were never in circumstances like that again, or if they were, they could bring eternal P on everybody that created them.
Garland, you want to add on to that?
Well, I don't have a lot more to add other than this. I'll say this, there's so many lenses and contexts in which you view this war. Donald Trump is pretty much, General Custer. He's dragged his team into Little Bighorn. On the front, yes, he's got the military issue, absolutely. Back home, he's got a political issue where people are screaming, hey, man, I didn't vote for that. I voted for America first, and this ain't America first. So he's got that. Then he's got the economic issues. We lost 92,000 jobs before this started. I don't think we're going to get more as a result of that. And I guarantee you this, we've got allied countries screaming, you got to be kidding me. You're killing me, Smalls, here. You're killing my economy. So he's got it coming from all different ways. And every time he calls the Iranians and asks for a conversation, they say no, which is strategically speaking, if I was the Iranians, I wouldn't talk to you, as Nixon said, Richard Nixon, that is, until you're laying on the floor and I got my foot on your neck. That's when your economy, when it's $10 a gallon gas in America, when you are all out of air defense and missiles and you've been out for 2 weeks, that's when I'm ready to talk. And I think that's the situation that the Iranians are doing. They have to have the upper hand. And it's taken 40 some years for them to get the upper hand, but they got it now. And I don't know if you've ever heard the Latin phrase, what is it, vae victis? Woe to the vanquished. When you lose a war, the outcome is imposed upon you. And that's where the direction we're headed.
Garland, you'd be interested to know that this morning we heard from Tehran University, a professor over there that talks to us, that there has been a sort of informal word sent back. When you have a new president, we might talk.
Wow. Well, he doesn't drink. What's his excuse? Hegseth drinks. Lindsey Graham drinks. And this is the face. And how about this guy, Jack Kane? You guys ever watch this dude?
Well, I'll say this about Jack Keane. I used to see him at Fox News all the time. His wife, who I know or knew at that time, I used to go on Fox News with her, very nice woman, before they got married. I knew her, from Fox News because she was on regularly. So I used to talk to him in the green room. And I didn't dislike him, but I found him divorced from reality. An ideologue to the highest degree. In fact, I found myself sitting in the green room with him and John Bolton at the same time, and I thought, my God, I've gone and died to hell. Died and gone to hell.
LeMaster. What about LeMaster? I'm going to bring you back in there, Chief. Chief, what happened to Tulsi Gabbard? Why is she staying on the job? Obviously, she has no influence. Wouldn't it be influential if she were to walk out and say, I can't take this anymore? Are you there, Chief?
Oh, he's gone.
Chief's gone. All right. Well, I'll ask you, Larry.
I really despair for Tulsi. When I knew her most intimately, and I don't mean that in any way other than that I was talking with her at close quarters about the JCPOA, because I'd been commissioned to go over and see if I could get her to, along with two experts on the agreement, to see if we could get her to be a member of the Congress that was in favor of the JCPOA. You may recall that we were having real problems with the Congress. We had 30 minutes into the briefing, and she stopped us for a second, held her hand up, and she said, why don't you get to the ask? And then she sort of talked for about 5 straight minutes without hardly taking a breath. And she demonstrated to us that not only had she read the agreement cover to cover, she understood some of the aspects of Monize's reasonings, for example, Secretary of Energy and a nuclear expert, and some of the other things better than we did, even the two experts I had with me. So at the end of that time, I looked at her and I said, ma'am, we are here wasting your time and wasting our time. Clearly, you know the agreement well enough to make a rational decision, and we hope you will make the decision that we think is rational, which is to support it. And we left. And a couple of times after that, I had a chance to chat with her about it again and about some other things, and she seemed a very sane, sound person. Since that time, based on some of the things she's done, I'd have to reevaluate a bit. And when she took this position, I started to reevaluate considerably because I couldn't figure out why she did it.
And if I may,
y'all go right ahead. I'm listening to you two guys here.
I was a big Tulsi Gabbard fan, so much so that in 2016, when at the convention, when I was covering it for Fox, and I was on, and they said, "Who do you think for 2020?" I know it's a long. I was at the Democratic convention in Philadelphia. They said, "Who would you like for 2020?" And I said, Tulsi Gabbard. Then in 2020, when she said, I'm going to announce Saturday, it was like a Wednesday that I'm going to run. I got on a plane and flew to Hawaii. I'm like, I'm going to be there when she announces, and I was a huge Tulsi Gabbard fan. She's very, very bright. I thought the world of her, but just like Colonel Wilkerson, I've had my doubts since. I have this feeling with Tulsi, and the feeling is, well, if I'm not here, they're going to replace me with some neocon, so I better stay here to do the best I can. And you know what? Logically speaking, my heart says to me, no, you got to walk out and quit. But logically speaking, if that's the case, I can make an argument for that. So I am torn. I'll put it like that. I guess I haven't really said anything. I'm torn.
Right. Well,
I can make that argument too, Randy, for Colin Powell.
Right. He was hoodwinked, right?
Well, he had similar thoughts about if I leave, good God. Of course, we all think that way. The graveyards are full of indispensable people. But in this case, I think there was a modicum of truth to what he was saying, because he would have been replaced immediately by Condoleezza Rice. And I'm sad to say she was plugged into Cheney and Bush and Rumsfeld like a circuit, a wall circuit. I mean, she was right there with them.
Wow. Who benefits out of this right now? What's happening in the Gulf of the shutting down of it and oil not being floating around anywhere?
First of all, the man that Trump just got off the phone with, begging him, and offering to lift all sanctions off him.
Who's that?
If he would, Putin.
Is that what happened?
If Putin would help him get prices down on a barrel of gas or a barrel of oil and thus gas. Yeah, that's what the call was all about. It was almost a mea culpa, I need your help. Would you help me? And Putin, not missing a beat, essentially said, yeah, lift the sanctions on me. Done.
Yeah.
That's the reason. That's the reason Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, you may have seen this. If you haven't, find it and look at it. He's in some sort of a meeting, a public thing, and he's talking, and unprecedentedly, a person comes in from the wings and says, the president wants to talk to you. And he looks kind of dumbfounded, and, then he hands the microphone to the MC and goes off stage. A few minutes later, he comes back, and he looks absolutely shaken. He resumes what he was doing, but you can tell something happened in the wings. I think that's Trump telling him. Because you remember how adamant Bessent was about those sanctions on Russia, going to bring her to her knees, going to do everything that needed to be done to that brute Russia.
Right. And we still have the same sanctions. I mean, even in spite of the Supreme Court decision on sanctions, individual sanctions.
Well, you're talking about tariffs.
Tariffs.
You're talking about
there's
tariffs.
tariffs.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sanctions you
Yeah.
can do anywhere.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Garland.
Yeah. Okay. If right off the bat, I mean, you can get into intricate detail about who benefits, but here's my first thought: BRICS, that's who benefits. What we're looking at, I think now, and I have to pronounce it this way, based on, I'm not even going to say the stupidity of leaders throughout the NATO countries, the absurdity. They're past the stupid, they're absurd. And so based on that, I look at it and I say, what we have now, obviously, is an economic infrastructure that was built after World War II that is dying, and one that is being born. Right, and what we have is that period of time where I forgot what it's interregnum or whatever.
Yeah,
or something. The
Interregnum.
old is dying and the new is being born, and what we're seeing is
monsters.
One of the issues in business is this: what you want what's the term that's called market preference, where people come to you for your product. Oh, the soup in your restaurant is so good that there's lines around the corner and everybody's coming to see you. Well, we've created a dynamic where people out there who are trying to survive are going to say, this ain't working for me at all. It's ending up, my people are going to be starving and they're going to throw me out of office. And what you're going to see is a market preference. People will be screaming to get into BRICS, and they're going to look at it and they're going to say, number one, Russia's got oil, and they're not the Straits of Hormuz is nowhere near Russia. So people are going to be looking at Russia's natural resources ability and capability for Russian gas, and they're going to say for gas and oil, and they're going to want to get a piece of that, and they're going to say, number one, it's going to hurt the Gulf countries, because people are going to look at that restriction at that choke point and say, wow, that could be shut off anytime. How can I insulate myself from that potential in the future? And so Russia's going to make out like a king. The BRICS countries, anybody that produces oil that doesn't come through, or gas that doesn't come through the Straits of Hormuz, is going to make out like a king. And that's it, BRICS.
Yeah.
Case in point, Randy, the EU, who roughly the time of the beginning of the SMO in Ukraine, voted that they would never buy another drop of Arctic Soviet Russian LNG, have been buying it for the past few years, 4 years to be exact. They just bought every drop of it for this coming year, and they said as they bought it and submitted the contracts, Russia smiled and began to use their ships to transport it down to Europe. they said, we'll implement it in January 27. You just wait and see if they do.
I thought Putin was contemplating, new customers that were more reliable.
I think he is.
The price of Russian Arctic LNG and the ready access to it, and it comes in on their own bottoms, is priceless. and I don't think it's going to stop.
Yeah.
And if I may add something that I think everybody needs to hear. So there is a book. God knows I didn't want to give Tony Blinken money. I had to pay $64 for this stinking book, but I did it. It's called Ally versus Ally: America, Europe, and the Siberian Pipeline Crisis by Anthony J. Blinken. It was written in 1987, and it was specifically written about, when I found out I had to get it and read it, it was specifically written basically about his opposition and the neocon opposition to, guess what? Oil in the Siberian pipeline coming into the European Union, right? And they were like, how do we stop this? I just want to read one little part of it, one sentence, not even the complete sentence from this book. Here's what he said. For a number of influential policymakers, the time seemed opportune to engage the Soviet Union in a round of economic warfare. Listen to the next part. Regardless of the price that might have to be paid by the economies of Western Europe and the American business community. That, my friend, is the true neocons that say our ideology of power and domination over our geopolitical adversaries outweighs the needs of the masses. Even the businesses, we don't care who suffers as long as we keep those darn Ruskies or the Chinese or whoever it is down. And that's what you're seeing now. You're seeing a policy that says we'll blow up Nord Stream. We'll blow up America's access.
We'll savage the German economy.
Exactly. We don't care. Exactly.
Randy, can I jump in on that?
Wait a second. Who is that? That chief. The chief, you have some news. You were lightning struck twice.
Yeah, I'm beginning to wonder about this. I have no storm in sight, but I lost power likewise, and I wonder has cyber warfare started in the Washington, D.C. area?
Well, with my guess, yes. You're next, Garland. Yes.
Yeah. But let me just add to that, and I had alluded to this earlier, Garland, you are spot on. I had not seen the book. I don't think I'm invested money. I wasted my money on a book on Doug Feith. I just want to see what you think. But anyway, listen, it goes all the way back. I think it was the New American Century or whatever. That's part of the EAI also. Well, that's their goal. You see, there's different factions of the neocons. You got the total neocon that want to, just take over the whole world. And then you have the Middle East neocons. They're just primarily focused on that. That's the Wolfers and the Doug Feiss of the world. And so you are spot on in what that former, Secretary of State said.
Yeah. That's sorry.
Randy, I'm sorry, but I got to run off now. I got another commitment at the half hour.
You do. All right, Larry Wilkerson.
It's been fun.
It's been a lot of fun.
Always a pleasure.
Good to hear you, Garland. Good to hear you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sane man in an insane world.
Yeah, he really is. Both of you, all three of you are sane.
Well,
all right, stay out of, off of golf courses, would you please? I don't want you to get a Lee Trevino.
I'm going to walk right out my backyard and see what kind of hole is in that transformer.
Yes, you don't want to get it. Lee Trevino got hit twice while golfing, once in the zipper. All right, be safe.
Take care.
Let me a really quick say. I used to do search and rescue on the Chesapeake Bay, so I know boating and stuff really, really well, right? And one of the times, I would have young people ask me, that were just starting boating. They'd say, "What do I do if I'm in this little runabout or whatever?" And I get caught in a thunderstorm, and I said, "That's easy. Get as close as you can to a sailboat." He says, "Yeah, but they have high masts, and that attracts lightning." I said, "Yeah, and it'll hit them and not you." Just a word of safety.
All right. That happened to me. I was somewhere in Florida, northern Florida, and you see these clouds in the distance. Oh, they'll never come this close. And like 30 seconds later, and I'm with two children and an older couple, and what do? I go right into the cabin. All right, it started lightning left and right. It scares the hell out of me. Lightning. All right. I took the kids in there with me. They weren't mine. So welcome back, Chief. And you two know each other, obviously. Where do we go from here? where do we go from here, Garland? What do you see a roadmap out of here and a peaceful resolution? Do you see it even happening?
Here's the thing about it. I don't think it's predictable. I don't think we could ever predict what's going to happen next. I think we're in a very difficult position. I think the Trump administration has made a decision that's they've got themselves in a jam, and it's you probably hear me do this. I always use that analogy. You jump off a cliff and you're halfway down, and you say to yourself, I think I made a mistake. I need a plan. There ain't no plan. Once you're in the air, there's one result. You are now at the whim of the elements, and gravity is not forgiving. And what the Trump administration, there was decisions they could have made before that, but due to hubris and other things, they're like, oh, we'll just go in here and be out in 4 days. The enemy gets a vote. And I always say this. When you tell a man, if you're going to get from a guy who's been trained in somewhat in self-defense, if you get in a fight with someone, that's one thing. If you tell somebody you're going to kill them, it's a different fight. We've told Iran we're going to kill them. They will never stop fighting, ever, to the last person, and they won't negotiate with you. They will put you in a position where they can impose an ending on you. And other than that, they keep fighting. Right now, what happens? If nothing else, we run out of everything. That's what happens. We run out of all weapons. That's what happens. And we won't be able to rebuild them for a decade.
Yeah. What do you?
And our economy crashes.
Chief Master Sergeant?
Well, let me just say this first. Before I got knocked off, I had written a note to say, I wish I was as cool, as calm as Garland. But I see, since I've left and come back, he's gotten just as emotional and as mad as I am. But I just want to tell you, Garland, before you got on, I've just been letting it loose because I'm just so mad because of the fact I saw the playbook. I predicted this was going to happen. I'm mad because there was nothing I could do about it. But I gave the playbook, to everybody that I could, that this was going to happen. Where does it end, Randy? Well, originally, this was the final ending that the neocons and the Zionists thought. As I mentioned earlier in the book, Iran was the last piece. Something I had mentioned to you earlier before, Randy, was that part of that plan was because of the fact they were scared of the ballistic missiles by Iran, and you saw it. And I predicted this, and I've written about it, that their goal was, the neocons, was to destabilize Iran within, by using the young people, by using women, and by using journalists. And then, by the way, I thought that happened in 2009 when we had an uprising, but that was internally. That was done by the Iranian people because they were concerned about the presidential election at that particular time. They thought it was corruption. And the neocons wanted, at the time, President Barack Obama to jump right in there. This is our opportunity. We have that destabilization and that uprising that we wanted. And President Obama would not bite. So they were mad. The latest destabilization that you've seen, that was orchestrated, as people know now, by us, the CIA, and Mossad, and with the help of the BRICS. They went inside and they tried to use the same playbook. In the Iraq War, they were going to use Shalaby. I don't know if you remember Ahmad Shalaby. He was going to be the hero that would go in and rescue the country. Now, they're trying to use the son of the past and last Shah. I think it's Reza Pahlavi. Yeah. They're trying to use him as the person to come in and rescue them. So where do we go? The neocons thought this was going to be it. They thought this was going to be the end of it. We got rid of those that were fighting us, Saddam in Iraq, Assad in Syria, and then the Ayatollah in Iran. That will be our time to take over the bigger Israel, and this was going to end. Now they came across a rude awakening. Right. Iran is fighting back. But let me just mention this. If we were to have defeated, you hear what I said? Had defeated, because it's not going to happen, Iran, believe it or not, which I thought the 7 countries, as General Wesley Clark had mentioned, which I written about, the 7 countries we were going to attack in 5 years. Now, it looks as though you have some in Israel, if they thought they were going to get past Iran, they had Turkey next.
Right. Well, let me just say this. Look, Iran is a different customer than some of these other countries, and they're well armed. We had no idea. They had no idea. You wrote about it that they had plenty of missiles, and they thought this was going to be a pushover. But as we can see, and Garland, you talked about this on your show a couple of times. I talked about it last week. I'm going to go to the playbook that they borrowed from Iran. And this is Muhammad Ali in 1975.
How do you plan to fight the fight, champ?
Well, I plan to fight my new style, Howard. I want to announce here now the new style about landing a rope sometime and let my man punch himself out. It is called the rope-a-dope.
The rope-a-dope.
Rope-a-dope.
Who does the word dope honor?
It honors whoever chases me in the rope.
All right, that's...
So you watch it. I'm introducing this to the fight game. It is called the rope-a-dope.
All right, go ahead. Garland, you can expand on that.
Well, I'll put it like this. And what he's saying is this, because at the time, I think he was fighting, I believe it was Foreman or somebody that was really big and strong. And they were like, okay, you're going to lose against this guy because he has a particular advantage. And what it's saying is this. When you are in a conflict, you have to utilize your advantages. It may be speed, it may be power, whatever it is, you got to make the other person fight your fight. As long as you have a strategy and the other person is allowing you to execute your strategy, the likelihood is that you're going to win, right? I think that's what he was saying. And that's what we're saying with Iran. Iran, look, you know what the U.S. is going to do. If you punch them, they're going to scream and yell and punch back. Right? What Iran is doing is saying we have the capacity to increase what we do. We can do asymmetry and we can do symmetry. Recently, Trump said, yes, we might have to blow up their power grid. And they immediately said, yeah, well, every power grid in this region will be shut down within an hour if you do it. So go right ahead. It's, hey, we're always going to warn you, if you think about an action, there will be repercussions. And what's interesting is this. They have targeted the foundation of the U.S.'s capacity. They went after various long-range radars to say, I'm going to pull the rug out of you. I'm going to pull the foundation of your ability to prosecute a war in the way that you normally do it, and I'm going to make you fight a different style of war. I'm going to weaken you, and then I'm going to punch you. And that's what they did. They weakened us, the U.S., and of course, the rope-a-dope being, hey, man, I can fight for 6 months, and I don't think you can fight for 6 weeks. Let's find out.
Go ahead there, Chief. I know you have something to say.
No, the only thing I was going to add to that, and you're right, Garland, it was Foreman that he used the rope-a-dope and defeated the big giant.
Yeah,
but listen,
Rumble in the jungle.
What people got to understand, Persians, the Iranians, they're the most educated people on this planet. Everything they've been doing, as Garland alluded to, has been calculated. They've strategized this for the longest, to be prepared to use the rope-a-dope, to use those thousands of cheap drones that they have, to make us use the $1 million defense systems that we have. And just, oh, by the way, they've done it a couple times now. Just think when they start using more so of the hypersonic missiles that cannot be stopped. Yeah. And so all this has been calculated, as Garland said, or you played that piece, Randy, about the rope-a-dope. That's exactly what they've been doing. This is an attrition war, which we thought we could win because we were going to take them out, as Trump would say, the first day through this excursion. I tell you, we are in trouble. And I will tell you, as you've seen already, the Iranians are saying, hey, this is not going to end until we kick you out of the Middle East. And I think some of these countries are going to come to the conclusion, hey, America's not going to protect us as they said they would. Oh, by the way, they give the majority of the defense missile systems to Israel and leaving us out here hanging because we're exhausting all ours now.
Yeah. Hey, Garland, we have a $1 trillion budget, defense budget. It's even more than that, stuff that's off the books. The Russians have a $150 billion budget. How is it that they're able to prosecute the war that we started, their special military operation, and continue to expand? They're not being weakened, we're being weakened in the process.
Well, I'll put it to you like this. It's like the difference between a woman with a $3,000 Gucci purse and a woman with a $45 leather purse that she bought at Walmart. Both of them do the same job. One of them you just paid a lot more for. So
That's it. I'm writing that down.
You know, so what happens? Okay, we brag. We you know what we did? We laundered $1 trillion through the military-industrial complex, so every criminal, crook, and shyster could get their fair share of the money. And so we bought a missile that should have been $100,000 for $100 million. That's all it is. We're arguing that the cost of the military somehow relates to the effectiveness and the capacity of the military to do its job. Right? No, I'm sorry. So what do? If I look, you and I go to I want a bottled water. Right. I go buy a dozen bottled waters at the store and I get all of them for $3. You go to a 5-star restaurant and say, I'd like a bottled water. That'll be $12. We both got the same bottled water. Yours is not going to taste better. Yours is not going to make you any healthier. That's all it is. We argue that because we spend so much money, most of it, that's pork, somehow it should work better. Once you get on the battlefield, either the thing hits its mark and it blows up. And might I add, our air defense system is non-existent. Even when they have missiles, air defense missiles, they can't stop anything. The game has changed and we're driving an old buggy. Look, our air defense system, great, we can shoot down a missile. Let's say you can. They throw 300 drones with that missile. Now you shoot down a missile, but the other 300 drones hit you. We're basically driving a horse and buggy when everybody else has a Porsche.
Yeah, well, you know, I was just thinking about Israel. It's like, what do they have, like Springfield rifles and slingshots at this point in time? You know, because the Iron Dome is really the iron foam. Wouldn't you say, Chief? Is the Chief still there? Or did you get hit by lightning again?
No, no, I'm going to stay with you to the end, as long as you want me.
Yeah, we got 10 more minutes, man. This is going by quickly.
Yeah, let me just add to what Garland just said. A person that spent many of my life in the Pentagon, and when you mentioned about the first thing I wrote down when you asked Garland that question, I wrote down military-industrial complex, the money that we spend. When I left the Pentagon when I left the military out of protest of the Iraq War, I tried a civilian life, and I got pulled back in to the Pentagon as a civilian by a mentor. My first job in the Pentagon was the security manager for the F-35 program. The most cost overrun, expensive program we've ever had. And you should have seen all the money that we wasted and were being overcharged. Oh, by the way, to add what Garland said, there were stories back in the day. I'm trying to think of the Washington Post writer then who used to write about the waste in the Pentagon. Jack Anderson. Yeah. Jack Anderson test.
It's a blast from the past.
Yeah,
I don't mean a snort. I mean a blast from the past. Go ahead.
Yeah, but listen, he talked about that. Many people, toilets, to go back to what Garland was saying, we were paying millions of dollars for toilets that we could have got from Home Depot anywhere, for hundreds of dollars. We were paying millions. Tools to work on stuff. And so it's about the military-industrial complex that are taking our money for things that could be done a lot cheaper.
Garland, I want to talk a few minutes about, at least the last 8 minutes, about the war, the proxy war in Ukraine. And it's getting dangerous again. You got the Brits, like the Storm Shadow missiles, hitting their nuclear triad, strategic triad. How come the Russians have not, fought back, but retaliated against them for this is like nine times with these Storm Shadow missiles. They tried to kill Putin. They hit with drones, their strategic bombers, and it's all MI6 mostly. So how come Russia has not retaliated in a very hard way?
Well, here's what I think. I think one of the things that the NATO, European NATO people, the one who want to push the war the most, one of the things that they hate about Vladimir Putin is that he won't react, that he is unflappable. They want him. They're like, crap, we can't. The Americans don't want to come in. What are we going to do? I know if we bait Putin in to throwing a missile into Germany or France or Britain or something shooting at us, then we can call for Article 5 and then we can have this world war. And great, we'll all get fried in a nuclear war. Hooray, what a great plan. But here's the deal. Vladimir Putin understands something. The way to win a war is to win a war. I ain't fighting them officially. I'm fighting them in a proxy war, and I'm defeating them in a proxy war. And they can keep doing that stuff. as long as they want. But I'm winning on the battlefield, and I'm not going to change. They're trying to get him to do something different than what he's doing, because what he's doing is effective. And I think right now, one thing is clear. The Russians have made a decision. We're going to win in Ukraine. And we're not going to go throwing. People can try to bait us all we want to. We ain't throwing no missiles at Germany or France or nothing like that. Not going to happen. We're going to win the war here. You can try all you want. And I think that's what they hate about Putin the most, in my opinion.
Wow. Well, it looks like we're losing there, Chief. It's been since the Vietnam War. I don't know the last time we won a war. We can't count Grenada. So it's like we got the longest losing streak since the '62 New York Mets.
Well, we're just a big bully that talks a big game. I hate to say it, as an American citizen, as a person that spent 28 years of my life, in the military, and watching this. It is people trying to utilize the military as pawns, and we talk a big game. All you have to do is look at the comedian right now, Hegsall.
Yeah, head case. We call him head case. Secretary of War head case. Yes.
Yeah. And so let me just go back to something Garland said about Putin. See, once again, calculation. Do people realize that if he so desired, like we did in Gaza, and I'm saying we because we're complicit, he can destroy Ukraine at any time, totally destroy it. But it's calculated. He's doing it by attrition. Yeah, they may be losing a lot of people, but he will win that attrition war. And he's calculated, as Garland said. He doesn't want to start World War III or cause something, because guess what? They will use their nuclear weapon arsenal if they are threatened that way. So he's doing this. And oh, by the way, I don't want to go into history again, and we're getting short of time. We caused that because that part of that neocon strategy, we wanted to weaken Russia. There was a deal made. I don't want to repeat history today, but Boris Johnson went over and said, oh, no, you don't need to do this. We got you. Right. It's all about United States of America imperialism. That's a fact.
Yeah. Garland, I want to ask you were talking about Zelensky the other day. He seems like he's passing the hat around again, and he's getting less money than someone at the Salvation Army in Biloxi, Mississippi on a rainy day in that hat. What has happened to poor Zelensky?
Well, but Zelensky's job is a money collector. His job is to go out and say, give us more money, so we can launder it through Kiev, and it can go into all of the hands of the crooks that are stealing all of this money. There's a dirty little secret about Zelensky, and that's why people are like, will Zelensky take a deal? Here's the dirty little secret. He's not in charge of Ukraine. If Vladimir Zelensky would say tomorrow, you know what, Americans and Vladimir Putin and all these other people, I decided to take your offer. I'm going to sign it right here. When he got back to Kiev, they'd hang him. They'd kill him. They know. You think the Azov battalion and all of those people would say, we're not listening to you. In fact, when he first got elected, he went to the front and said, guys, perhaps we should stop shooting at the Eastern Ukrainians. And they said to him then, we will hang you. On the streets of Kiev. Get out of here. We don't listen to you. And he found out. So all of this talk about Zelensky, he doesn't have the capacity to make a deal, to sign anything, because he's not in charge of Ukraine. It's all a fraud. If he did, they'd kill him. So all he can do is collect as much loot as possible and try to get out of it with his hide intact so he can enjoy his ill-gotten gains.
Where is he going to go, though? Seriously. Is he going to go to Israel? Can't go to Israel. That would have been a safe place. But at this point, who would want to go there?
I think where he's going to, in my opinion, he knows too much. And where he's going to go, let's just say, will not be on this mortal plane.
All right. We got a minute there, Chief, to either follow up or close here. We got 3 minutes left altogether.
Quick follow-up to what Garland said. I find what irony I find is that now we're seeking Zelensky and the Ukrainians. Hey, help us defend against these drones that you have experience in, because the drones that you're defending came from Iran. So right. I find that some irony.
Amazing. Finally, going to him to get advice on how to fight a drone war.
Yeah. And finally, what I will leave with, first of all, Randy, thanks for having me again. This is too important. I got to tell you, I feel like a failed person, but we couldn't stop this. It was written. This Iran war was going to start. And what I would tell your audience and the world is shame on us, because the United States of America has been lied into another deadly war where we're killing innocent women and children that started out with the killing of those elementary school teachers. And how can any of us be proud of what we're doing to Iran as we did in Iraq, as we did in Libya, as we did in Afghanistan? We are made ourselves killing machines, not opinion, not assumption, but fact, because we've seen it and we're doing it again. And shame on our Congress and people with some common sense and talk about humanity that is not stopping this.
All right. Thank you, Chief
Dennis Fritz.
Dennis Fritz. Chief, I'm looking at some other notes about
I was trying to help
WPFW. I'm looking at WPFW. Dennis, that was great. It's Deadly Betrayal, and you're with the Eisenhower Media Network. And Garland, you got the last 2 minutes here.
Oh, well, I'll just say thank you very much and keep up the good work. It's important. One of the things that I find very refreshing, at least now, is that alternative media, shows such as you, the great work that Dennis and his people are doing over at the Eisenhower Media Network. And of course, I have my YouTube show. One of the things that I think that is making me feel good about what's happening is the presence of alternative media, the growth of alternative media, and how people are going outside of the mainstream media that is controlled by the military-industrial complex and these billionaires. So you're doing good work.
Well,
alternative
let me just say
media is growing.
This alternative media, you're right. But you and the other three stations on Pacifica, we're broadcast.
Yeah.
How important is it to have a broadcast outlet? Because we're not going to be on any other broadcast networks.
Absolutely. I've had so many people call me because, I might have Ray McGovern. We have similar guests, great people. But I've had people, call into the station and say, I've never heard these perspectives and I'm so glad you're there, and they contribute to the station and all that. So I feel good about what we're doing. I think we're a critical part of the world changing, and we're going to be the ones that's going to save it so that we don't all get fried in a nuclear war. Particularly you, Randy. I think we should all credit you with saving the earth.
The Garland Nixon show. The Garland Nixon is on Facebook. I always see it, and he's very entertaining. Not only are you incisive and educational, but you're very entertaining. It's just like you have that personality. And so do you, Dennis. Dennis, you were fantastic, and I thank you both for being on this show here at WBAI. Thank you, Reggie, and thank you, listeners. We're going to go out here. This is
Four Tops.
I'll tell you. Yeah, we're going to go out with the Four Tops because my sister, well, my half sister, she listened to all the Black History Month shows, and she said, "You never played the Four Tops." All right, we saw the Four Tops 100 times.
We talk too much. That's why. We talk too much.
All right, we're going to go out. Here's a medley. Thank you. Here's a medley of the Four Tops from the Ed Sullivan Show in 1966. See you next week. Thank you, guests.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. Here's the Four Tops.